In 1955, there were 15 Sunday traditions every American family kept. Today, nobody keeps them. Number 1 is not an activity. It's the condition that held the other 14 together. 3 months going through parish archives and more than 200 family accounts. Number 8 has an exact date when this country stopped doing it. Number 12 was so small that no father knew his son would remember it 60 years later. You think these disappeared because America lost its faith. The faith barely changed. What disappeared was something else, and nobody saw it leave. Number 15, the Sunday shoes by the door. Saturday night, somebody would open a tin of Kiwi black polish. On a newspaper spread across the kitchen floor, the good shoes came out. Yours, your brother's, your father's. And here is something almost nobody knows. Kiwi polish was Australian, invented in 1906, with carnauba wax shipped in from Brazil. That small tin had crossed 2 oceans, so a pair of shoes could last 3 years instead of 1. Those shoes were a single pair, a whole week's wages. The polish wasn't vanity. It was how you said, without saying it, that Sunday deserved something different. The casual clothes of the 70s finished this off. 1 tin of polish, 20 minutes on a Saturday night. When the body stops preparing for something, that something stops existing. And before anyone crossed a doorway, something else had already started out on the street. Number 14, the father's hat and the mother's white gloves. She put on the good dress. She opened the dresser drawer and took out the white cotton gloves. He took his hat off the rack. Dark fedora. And here's the detail almost nobody remembers. The white gloves weren't fashion. They were canon law. The Code of Canon Law of 1917 required women to enter the church with their head covered and their hands gloved. That rule was lifted in 1983. The last public image of that tradition was Jackie Kennedy in a black veil at her husband's funeral in 1963. After that, nobody dressed like that again. 1 pressed shirt on a Saturday night. Just 1. A whole street, dressed the same at the same hour, said something no sermon could. Inside that church, a bronze plaque was waiting for you that almost nobody knows used to exist. Number 13, your family's PEW. 4th row from the front, left side, or 5th on the right. Each family had its own. And here's something few people remember. Up until the 1920s, in many American churches, families paid for their pew. There was a bronze plaque with the family name screwed into the back. By 1955, nobody was paying anymore. The plaques had been taken down, and the seat was still respected, as if it were still being paid for. The habit outlived the bill by a whole generation. That pew taught you something without words. When you walked through that door, there was a physical place waiting for you. Modern churches with their movable chairs finish this off. Sit in the same spot 2 Sundays in a row. In 3 weeks, you'll have a place that's yours. And as you walked out of that pew, something happened in your father's pocket. Number 12, the coin in the child's fist. Before leaving the house, your father reached into his pocket. He pulled out a coin, a nickel. He handed it to you without saying much. You carried it in a tight fist the whole way there. And here's what changes the weight of that gesture. In 1955, 5 cents bought a whole Hershey bar. Your father was handing you the very thing you wanted most that day and teaching you to let it go. It wasn't symbolic. It was the real sacrifice. The coin made a small sound against the rest in the plate. That sound stayed with you all week. 5 seconds of the gesture. 60 years of the memory. The printed envelopes of the 90s finished this off. What isn't seen isn't passed down. What comes next was invented in England in 1780, and not by a priest. Number 11. Sunday school before the main service. A full hour earlier. Other children in small chairs around a low table. Illustrated Bibles with hard cardboard covers. And here's the origin almost nobody knows. Sunday school wasn't born as a religious tradition. Robert Raikes invented it in England in 1780. Factory children worked 6 days a week and couldn't read. Sunday was the only day off. Raikes taught them the alphabet, using the Bible as a textbook, because it was the only book in every house. 200 years later, in your congregation, that same hour was still opening Sunday morning. The church gave you an hour that was only yours. The 90s unified the services. Before the main service, a small room with small chairs and a voice that knows your name. That's all it takes. While you were learning a verse, something was happening at home that looked eternal. It was less than 10 years old. Number 10. The roast in the oven before church. At 9 in the morning, before leaving, your mother put the roast in the oven. She turned it on low. She closed the door. And here's the surprising part. The American Sunday roast wasn't an old tradition. It was almost new. Before the war, very few families had a controllable gas oven. Between 1946 and 1955, cheap gas stoves reached most homes in the country. That tradition that felt eternal was actually less than 10 years old when you lived it. And it died fast. Fast food opened on Sundays, starting in the 60s, finished it off. Then, the microwave. A house that smells like something for 3 hours is not the same house that heats up a pizza in 4 minutes. And when the roast came out of the oven, it went straight into a room that only opened 1 day a week. Number 9. The dining room used only on Sundays. Your house had a room that was almost always closed. The formal dining room. A cabinet with a good china behind glass. Plates with gold rims. Silver flatware. And here's where all that logic came from. The phrase, Sunday best, was coined by Puritan preachers in the 1800s. They had a theological problem. How to allow a family to own good things without falling into the sin of luxury. The solution was a simple rule. You are allowed something fine if you use it 1 day a week. The best clothes, the best plates, the best room, all saved for Sunday. That logic organized the American home for 100 years. Bring out the good china 1 Sunday a month. Set the starched tablecloth. The open floor plan of the 80s finished this off. Today, everything is good every day, and nothing is good any day. What comes next has an exact date of death. A federal order buried it in 90 days. Number 8. The Sunday drive after lunch. The whole family in the car. No destination. Your father at the wheel. Your mother with a thermos of coffee. 2 hours circling the back roads of the county. And this has an exact date. October 6th, 1973. The oil crisis began. In 3 months, gas went from 38 cents a gallon to 55. The real blow was the rationing. Stations closed on Sundays. 3-hour lines. The Sunday drive without a destination became, overnight, a reckless thing. And it never came back. The car was the room that moved. Your father talked more in those 2 hours than in the whole week. A federal order, without meaning to, killed that in 90 days. 1 hour on a Sunday, a month. No destination. No screen in the car. The county is still there. Sometimes on that drive, the car turned in a familiar direction. Number 7. The visit to the elders. No warning. No phone call ahead. Your father turned the car toward his parents' house, or toward the widowed aunt's place. Your mother carried something in a dish covered with a cloth. And here's the fact that explains why this was even possible. In 1955, 80% of Americans over 65 lived in the same town as at least one of their adult children. Today, that number is less than 40%. The Sunday visit wasn't virtue. It was geography. The job mobility of the 70s separated families across entire states. Today, an older person can go through a whole Sunday without anyone knocking on the door. A door that opens without a phone call first. That's a kind of joy no text message can give. Back home, at 2 o'clock sharp, a sound came through that your mother had been waiting half an hour for. Number 6. The long-distance call at 2 in the afternoon. At 2 o'clock sharp on Sunday, the long-distance rate dropped. Your mother had been watching the kitchen clock since 1:30. At 2, the phone rang. It was the sister who had moved to Wisconsin, or the oldest son out in California. And here's the detail few people remember. In 1953, AT&T realized that call was so common, they used it in their print ads. The ad said exactly this: Sundays, after service, call your mother. The company had discovered the family habit and was selling it back to the people who already did it. The Sunday call wasn't a T&T's idea. A T&T just charged for it. 5 minutes. They were heavy because they cost. The flat rates of the 90s took away the waiting. When a family calls every day, it stops really calling. Number 5. Your father's nap with the paper open. In the living room, in the big chair, something quiet was happening that weighed 2.5 pounds. Your father in the big chair in the living room, his Sunday shirt still on, his tie hung over the arm of the chair. Across his chest, the Sunday paper open. And here's something concrete. In 1955, the Sunday edition of the New York Times weighed 2.5 pounds. It had 15 sections. The Chicago Tribune ran to 3 pounds. Those papers were designed to last exactly the 4 hours an American father had free that day. Literature, business, sports, comics, all in one object. The paper slid slowly down to the floor. Nobody woke him up. It was a rule nobody had said out loud. The screens took the Sunday paper, 1 hour a week when that man had permission to serve no one. Today, nobody knows what to call what's been taken from him. What comes next was killed by a sports broadcast with an exact date, September 21st, 1970. Number 4, the evening service. At 6:30, the shirt went back on. No hat, no gloves. The church at night was simpler. Inside, half the people. The organ played quieter. The pastor preached with a more tired voice, closer somehow. And here's the exact date of the blow. On September 21st, 1970, ABC premiered Monday Night Football. It worked so well that in 1972, NBC started experimenting with Sunday Night Football. In 2 years, the NFL took over the evening service hour. The night congregations emptied out. Exhausted pastors stopped delivering 2 different sermons in the same day. Today, almost no church holds an evening service. That stillness has never been replaced. And when the church closed, something else lit up at home. Number 3, the radio voice that gathered the family. Sunday night, after dinner, somebody turned on the radio sitting on the sideboard. Not the television, the radio. And for a few minutes, 30 million American families heard the same voice at the same time. Bishop Fulton Sheen on Sundays. Father Patrick Peyton praying the family rosary on the air. Charles Fuller on the old-fashioned revival hour. And here's the concrete fact. In 1949, Fulton Sheen's weekly radio program had more listeners than Frank Sinatra's. A priest, in prime time, was beating the most famous singer in the country in the ratings. That was America in 1955. Television took those hours and those audiences in the 60s. A living room that doesn't share a voice with anyone outside stops having a voice inside. In the houses that didn't turn on the radio, there was a book that in 6 weeks entered 1 million American homes. Number 2, the Bible read aloud in the living room. Your father with the Bible open across his knees. The living room in dim light, a single lamp on. 1 chapter, no more. And here's a fact that says a lot about that time. In October of 1952, the Revised Standard Version of the Bible was published. In the first 6 weeks, it sold 1 million copies. It was the best-selling book of the entire year in the United States. That Bible wasn't bought to sit on a shelf. It was bought to be read out loud. 1 million American living rooms in 6 weeks. You didn't understand half of it. The voice reading it was what stayed with you. That voice, 60 years later, you still hear it when you close your eyes. The television installed in the living room in the 60s finished this off. 10 minutes, 1 short chapter, the screen off. An adult voice reading out loud is the only inheritance money can't buy. And underneath those 14 traditions, there was one more. The one that made all of them possible. Number 1, and it is not an activity. It is a condition. The silence of the whole Sunday. The whole street at the same silence. No neighbor's lawnmower. No delivery truck. No store open 3 blocks down. No traffic passing through. Sunday didn't sound like any other day of the week, and that silence was no accident. It was law. The blue laws closed almost every business on Sunday. State by state, the legislatures had decided that 1 day a week, the country stopped. And here's the concrete fact. In 1961, the United States Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the blue laws in the case of McGowan versus Maryland and opened the door for each state to repeal them. The states repealed them one by one between 1961 and 1985. The stores opened. The trucks started rolling. Think about that for a moment, and you'll understand why the other 14 worked. The polished shoes from number 15. The pew from number 13. The coin in the fist from number 12. The roast from number 10. The nap from number 5. The voice on the radio from number 3. The Bible in the living room from number 2. All of that needed the world outside to be quiet. When the street started sounding like a Tuesday, everything else lost its place. And Sunday, with almost nobody noticing, stopped being Sunday. We didn't lose the faith. We lost the silence that held it up. And without that silence, the 14 traditions you knew as a child had nothing to stand on. They fell on their own, one by one, all together. You lived those 14 traditions. Nobody told you about them. You did them. You know the smell of kiwi polish on a Saturday night, the weight of the coin in your fist, the voice of your father reading the Bible in dim light. That wasn't learned. That was lived. And if it's still alive in you, it's because somebody did it with you when you were a child. The question worth asking tonight isn't which one was lost. It's which one you can do again this Sunday. Just one. The smallest one. The one that fits in 5 minutes. Because that's how an American home used to rest. And if you want to see what other things from that same house, that same kitchen, and that same street disappeared without anybody noticing, watch the video showing on your screen now. 1.